Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Selling Greenville, your favorite real estate podcast here in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm your host, as always, Stan McCune, realtor right here in Greenville, and you can find all of my contact information in the show notes if you need to reach out to me for any of your local real estate needs. And just a reminder, as always, please hit the little like button if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening or watching on. This is a good episode to watch on, by the way, if you have a second to pull up YouTube. And as always, please, if you can leave a rating or a review or something like that, would really appreciate if you guys could do that. I want to talk to you guys today. I'm just going to jump right in. We're going to talk about the top 10 hottest neighborhoods in the greater Greenville area. Now, there's a few different ways to track this, obviously. But I went with neighborhoods the past 6 months. And by the way, I pulled this data a couple of weeks ago. So there might be some additional things that have happened since then, but I can't control that. I can only control what I can control at the end of the day, which is that I pulled the data 2 weeks ago and I was going to record it last week. But I interviewed John Nolan last week. And so I'm doing this episode this week. But basically, I looked at neighborhoods that had sold at least 5 homes the past 6 months, and looked at days on market, sold price to list price ratio, sales volume / velocity, price per square foot, and basically use that analysis to determine what are the hottest neighborhoods in this area. And it's a very, very interesting thing to look at because throughout the entire upstate, there are various hot neighborhoods in a lot of different areas. And so we're going to start with number 10. If you'll just give me 1 second here, I'm going to pull up the multiple listing service. And you guys will be able to, if you're watching, you'll be able to actually see what some of these neighborhoods look like. All right. Number 10 on the list. So the top 10 hottest neighborhoods in the upstate. Number 10 on the list is Wells Crossing in Seneca. I'm going to share my screen real quick here so that you guys can see right into the multiple listing service here. Make sure that this is exactly the way it needs to be. All right, perfect. Wells Crossing in Seneca. I'm just going to show you guys what kind of the homes in this neighborhood look like. But here are the things with Wells Crossing that make it particularly unique. Now, it is a neighborhood that has some new construction in it. The homes are generally between 2,200 and 3,000 square feet. Obviously, newer builds. In terms of the exact location, we are kind of we're past Clemson, but not quite in downtown Seneca. Okay, so we're kind of equidistant between downtown Clemson and downtown Seneca. What's unique about Wells Crossing? The sample size I looked at had 22 sales, so good sales numbers. I didn't pull any neighborhoods that had fewer than 5 sales. Wells Crossing, the average home sold in 2 days or fewer, or I should say the median. The median sold in 2 days or fewer. That is obviously very impressive. Homes selling very quickly. Now, not all of them. There were a few homes that sold, there was one that took 256 days, one that took 165 days, but look at all these zeros. Now, again, new construction, sometimes the days on market is skewed a little bit, but that's still impressive. On average, they sold for 1% over list price, with a $491,000 median, $185 a square foot. So if you're looking to move to the Clemson / Seneca area, this could be an interesting neighborhood to look at. It's a very hot one, so just be prepared that it might be a little too hot to handle. And you might find yourself competing with some other people when it comes to this home, or to the homes in that neighborhood. Let's look at number 9. Number 9 is going to be the Reserve at Livingston Park. This is in Easley. Let me pull these up real quick. I'll tell you guys where this neighborhood is. All right. I'm going to make sure that I'm actually telling you the correct thing. All right. This neighborhood is just southeast of downtown Easley, not quite as far south as the sports complex, the JBO Sports Complex. Okay. This is also a neighborhood with that's mostly new construction that's sold in this area. DRB is the builder for this neighborhood. And again, days on market, 0 days on market. Okay. And a lot of that has to do, and that's on median. A lot of this has to do with the fact that we're dealing mostly with new construction. But again, they have some spec homes on here as well that they've included. Not everything is 0 days on market. They have just been selling really, really well. Easley is hotter than people realize. A lot of people don't realize just how hot Easley is right now. That's something to keep in mind. Had a total of 30 closings in 6 months. That's quite a bit. Okay. These builders can crank out these homes, but 30 closings in 6 months, that's a lot of closings. So DRB was really cranking these homes out for that one. A $393,000 median price point. That's obviously, for the Easley area, that's pretty high, right? Even for the greater Greenville area, that's well above the median where we've been sitting around 315 to 320. So we've got Seneca, we've got Easley. We're kind of on the west side, right? We're kind of in what would be considered Western Upstate. That's where we've been up to this point. Now we're going to go way on the other side of the Upstate to Ransdale Point in Spartanburg. 16 sales over a 6 month period of time. These are townhomes, and I'll show you guys where these are. These are, if you're looking at a map, if you're looking at Google Maps, you will see east of downtown Spartanburg, it says Zion Hill. I don't think that people really call it that very much, but it's basically in that general area. And you can, if you're looking on YouTube, you can kind of see what these townhomes look like. Again, these are also DRB. So DRB kind of cleaning up on this list so far. But good looking townhomes priced at an affordable level, $230,000 median price point. That's a fantastic buy, especially if you work in that Spartanburg area. Great first time home buyer product. These townhomes, as a lot of these modern townhomes now have, they have garages. Now, I'm not seeing in any of these any two-car garages. It just seems like mostly single-car garages. Some of the townhomes these days are including the two-car garages. But the single car garage works at this price point, right? These are selling for, on average, 3.8% over what they're listed for and only staying on the market for 29 days on median. Those are very, very strong numbers, right? 3.8% over list price. We're not seeing a whole lot of that happening right now. But again, new construction, that tells me that people are looking at these homes and they're saying, you know what? I don't care what it's listed for. I want to go ahead and buy it and maybe even add some upgrades in there in order to have a nicer home, even if it costs a little bit more money. So they priced that one at a point that people were willing to go in and do upgrades in order to make the home even nicer. Number 7 on the list, Augusta Road. Augusta Road, obviously, now we're in Greenville County for the first time, right? We're finally in Greenville County here. And if you know the Augusta Road area, it's obviously got some of the more exclusive parts of Greenville County in it. 35 closed sales over the period of time that I looked at this. 12 days on market median, with a $750,000 median price point. $388 a square foot. That's the highest of the ones that we're looking at here. And I've got a sneeze coming. And it may have gone away for just a second. We'll see if it comes back. There's a podcast I listen to that the host would always sneeze for the longest time. And he had a co-host, and the co-host would always be like, "Oh, he's sneezing." and and then the co-host would take over. Well, what's interesting is he and the co-host had kind of a bit of a split, and and after the split, the guy stopped sneezing, and I don't know why. I'm very intrigued by it. But Augusta Road, the highest price per square foot price point of any of these neighborhoods that we're looking at. And in case you don't know exactly where Augusta Road is, which I think most of you will, but the general Augusta Road area, once you get kind of near Greenville Tech and West Ferris and all of that, that's where, and of course Augusta Street that goes straight through. That's where you start to see some of the Augusta Road area. Now, we've got kind of Pleasant Valley in here. It's kind of an amorphous area. This is a classic one here. I'm looking at 213 West Ferris Road, right by Augusta Circle Elementary School. That would be kind of like your classic area of Augusta Road. And so you can kind of get a sense of that. But a lot of these are more established homes. These are not new construction, right? Most of these are much, much older homes. A lot of homes that have been added onto multiple times. Every now and then there will be some newer construction in the area, but for the most part, these are going to be older homes that are just in a very, very hot area, and that is what the Augusta Road area is. Next up, we've got Silo Ridge. We're going to Anderson County now. Silo Ridge. This is another DRB community, and guess what? It looks exactly like Ransdell Point and Spartanburg that we just looked at. DRB just cleaning up right now. Now, if you want to know what part of Anderson we're talking about, we're just north of downtown Anderson, right off of Highway 81. If you're looking at Google Maps, you'll see White Oaks, and it's just north of that area labeled as White Oaks on Google Maps. This is very similar to the one in Spartanburg that we talked about there at Ransdale Point. A median of 24 days on market, selling for on average 3.5% over list price, with a median price point a little bit higher than the Spartanburg one, $279,000 median, but the exact same townhome product that we just looked at with the single car garage. And, this is what a lot of people find themselves doing is, they're not able to afford anything except for townhomes. And so they end up in these townhomes. And, that's great if you're just trying to stop the rent cycle and stop having to, you're really wanting to stop having to pay someone else to not take care of your home and all of that. Buying a townhome can be a great kind of low maintenance option. They don't appreciate to the level that single family detached homes do. But if you hold on to them long enough, they should appreciate in some way, assuming that you made a good purchase on the front end, didn't overprice on the front end, or didn't purchase it overpriced on the front end. Number 5, we're going to go to Piedmont to Saluda Crossing, where DRB, yet again, with their townhome community, just mopping up. Are you noticing a theme here? Are you noticing a theme? If you are an investor, maybe consider competing with DRB on some of these things, right? You might be able to find a niche making these townhomes if you can get them approved, which is hard to do these days because everyone's angry about them. But this is just west of downtown Piedmont, right off of Highway 86. And again, they all look exactly the same. Townhomes with those single car garages. And these are selling 10 days on market, 3.2% over list price with a $242,000 median. So priced in between the exact same neighborhoods that they did in Anderson and Spartanburg. They priced those at Saluda Crossing. They're in Piedmont, right in between those two. And Piedmont, I get questions about Piedmont. Piedmont's an interesting area. There are plans for downtown Piedmont that I think could be very exciting. But there's a lot of interesting things in the greater Piedmont area. And of course, there's Powdersville, which is a very popular area. There's some schools around there that are really popular as well. I've got a listing in Piedmont right now. It's getting a lot of traction, and so at some point that downtown-ish Piedmont area where the Saluda goes through and whatnot, I believe is going to really be revitalized. There's a lot of plans for that, and I'm excited to see that. All right, number four hottest market in the greater Greenville area, Cedar Gap. We're moving away from DRB and onto DR Horton, which is not the same builder. And now we're in Fountain Inn, right off of 418, just west of downtown Fountain Inn, west of 385. Cedar Gap had a whopping 57 closings over the course of this sample size, the 6 month sample size that I pulled. These are not townhomes though. These are single family detached homes, and mostly new construction, but there are a few in the sample size that were resales, and they sold. So 57 closings sold on average in 41 days. And actually, I think that's the median, 41 days on market. $310,000 median price point. That's a great price point, right? We've been talking about how the median as a whole for the greater Greenville area is more like 315, 320. So the median for a brand new home, 310. We've been talking about that a lot, right? How the builders have been just absolutely dominating because they've been able to undercut everyone else. And in terms of sold price to list price ratio, sold for a little bit below list price, 0.3%, but that's negligible, right? The average in the greater Greenville area is that homes sell for about 2% lower than list price. So if you're above that, you're doing quite well. So that's Cedar Gap in Fountain Inn. Now we're going to go back to Piedmont and look at the Wood Glen neighborhood, which had 47 sales over the sample size that I pulled here. This is also DR Horton. You're going to notice the homes look very similar to the Cedar Gap neighborhood that we just looked at. And these are also in the very similar area to the Piedmont neighborhood that we just looked at that was just west of downtown Piedmont and just off of Highway 86, except this one's north of 86 versus south of 86. And Wood Glen, the median was 25 days on market. They sold for 0.6% over list price with a $362,000 median. So that's very interesting, right? I'm gonna scroll through. Whoops, press the wrong button there. I'm gonna scroll through these homes. These homes are extremely similar to what we just looked at in Cedar Gap. A lot of them look almost identical. They look like they're pretty much the same size as Cedar Gap, but they're selling for, on average, $52,000 more. And again, why is that? Location, okay? And it might be counterintuitive to some people that the Piedmont location can sell for a higher price point than Fountain Inn. But Piedmont is, again, you've got access to several major highways that can get you right if you're working in downtown Greenville or if you're going to Powdersville or whatever the case may be. It's a little bit quicker. Now, Fountain Inn has access to 385 and whatnot, so Fountain Inn is no slouch either from that standpoint. But it's very interesting that DR Horton found that they can price homes in Piedmont more expensive than they can in Fountain Inn. But we're going to go to our number two hottest neighborhood in the Upstate, and we're going back to Fountain Inn to Durbin Meadows. This is another DR Horton community, and Durbin Meadows. So again, DRB and DR Horton just dominating these stats right now. Durbin Meadows had the most sales of any neighborhood that I pulled here. And if you're curious where it is, this one is now east of downtown Fountain Inn, not too far off of Durbin Road. Not to be surprised, that's one of the major thoroughfares that kind of connects into, east of Fountain Inn into downtown Fountain Inn. And Durban Meadows, the most closings of any neighborhood that I polled here, 68 closings, a median price point of 311,000, sold for only half a percent point below list price, and 64 days on market, which that's about average on median. The median of 64 days on market is about normal. I should say it that way. I won't say average. It's about normal for the greater Greenville area right now. And again, these look awfully similar to some of the other homes that we've just been looking at, right? We've looked at I believe, three straight D.R. Horton neighborhoods. All these homes look exactly the same, but the price points vary. So you can go to Cedar Gap. Do you want to be on the west side of Fountain Inn? You can buy a D.R. Horton home there for a 310 median, or you can go east of Fountain Inn to Durban Meadows and buy a home for 311,000 on median. And so this is where, I've been telling you guys, again, new construction is crushing everything right now, and you're seeing exactly that showing up in the data that I pulled. All right. Last but not least, the number one hottest neighborhood in the Upstate, Echo Grove. Where else but Travelers Rest? We've really hit a good variety here, and I did not intentionally do that. In fact, I ran this through a model that helped me to identify what the hottest neighborhoods were. And Echo Grove, it automatically came up with this variety, and just really wowed me with the fact that, okay, we've got hot neighborhoods all across the Upstate. It's not just concentrated in one specific area. And Echo Grove, pull this up here. New construction, but these are, give me 1 second here. I'm going to try to see. Okay. These are custom new construction. I'm just double checking something here. Yeah, welcome to Echo Grove, a premier new home community just 5 minutes from charming downtown TR. No surprise, right? Downtown TR, very, very popular right now. And so again, this is all new construction, not with one of these mega production builders like DRB or DR Horton, national builders. This is with Pinestone Builders, a much smaller builder, maybe more interesting to some people that want to avoid the big national builders. But 0 days on market was the median for these homes. They sold on average for 7% over list price with a median price point of $711,000 and $313 a square foot. And this is a sneaky thing about Travelers Rest right now. Something that people need to understand that I think a lot of people don't fully comprehend right now is that TR is quickly becoming, if it hasn't already become, the most expensive place to live in the Upstate. And that's a variety of a lot of things, right? You've got the mountains not too far to the north. You've got the Swamp Rabbit Trail that basically starts in TR or ends in TR, depending on how you look at it. You've got all those cute shops and great little restaurants there on Main Street. And it's not an area that feels overdeveloped, right? You've got neighborhoods like this Echo Grove neighborhood it's one of the hottest neighborhoods in the Upstate, but it's only sold 7 homes in 6 months, as opposed to, we just talked about Durban Meadows had 68 closings in 6 months. That's a huge neighborhood, right? And so, given 2 choices, everyone would prefer a smaller neighborhood versus a larger neighborhood. Now, the only factor being, whether there's like neighborhood amenities like pools, pickleball courts, all of that stuff. Sometimes that's, a variable that you have to account for. Some people are looking for those things, but most people just prefer that smaller neighborhood feel over the alternative. And so Echo Grove and a lot of other neighborhoods in TR are providing that. So there you go. At a variety of price points in a variety of locations, there you have the 10 hottest neighborhoods in the greater Greenville area. I'll probably be doing this exercise more often in the future, And I think the main thing that as a person analyzing this data, concluded was that, again, new construction at all price points is the game right now. Okay. It is the game. Now, that's not to say that if you're a buyer that you should be looking for new construction. Most buyers don't start off looking for new construction. Usually they just end there once they realize what the options are and all the incentives that the builders are giving to buy these new construction homes, closing cost incentives, rate buy downs, things of that nature. But beyond that, people would prefer to buy an existing home. And if you can buy an existing home, there's a simplicity to that. Oftentimes, that's kind of nice. But a lot of great new construction options out there at various price points and a lot of different locations. So if you're interested in any of that, let me know. If you have any questions about any of this data, let me know. My contact information is in the show notes. And if you enjoy this content, please subscribe. Make sure you don't miss future content. Like, rate, review, all of those good things. And we will talk to you guys again next time.